Hi everybody, I'm Jennifer Johnson. I'm a contributing editor with Christian Standard magazine. I'm also one of the writers for the magazine. And I have the privilege today of talking with two of my friends, Rob Kastens and Melissa Sandel. And they are doing a workshop tomorrow along with several others about leading from the second chair. Is that the title of it?
Yes.
Okay. They are executive pastors extraordinaire, and they are here to tell you a little bit about what they've learned along the way and give us a sneak peek into their workshop. So now that I've already introduced them, I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit more about yourselves beyond just your name, with the church that you're at, a little bit about how long you've been there, that kind of thing. Why don't you go first?
Sure. I serve at Westside Christian Church in Springfield, Illinois as the Director of Ministries. And when I first started in the executive pastor role, there were pretty few definitions of executive pastor, but now there are dozens, and every church does it differently. I serve as what we call the Director of Ministries, which means that I oversee our ministry staff and our strategy and our communications.
And how long ago was that?
I started in this role 8 years ago,
Okay.
but I've been on staff for 12.
Okay, so a lot has changed in that time.
In a
I'm
growing
sure.
church, things change all the time, so
Yeah.
my role has changed and our church has changed
Yeah,
in that stretch. Yeah.
absolutely. And how about you, Rob?
Well, I'm at Mountain Christian Church in Joppa, Maryland, just north of Baltimore. I've been there 14 years, and Mountain's a very old church. We're 192 years old this year. So a lot of history, a lot of tradition. I was the first executive pastor there at Mountain. So that itself brought a lot of change to the church and the staff. We have about 1,700 folks, average attendance when I got there. We're 5,300 a day, 3 campuses. So the complexity and the role has changed multiple times in the 14 years I've been there. So
Absolutely. Well, let's start by this will be aired online after the workshop has happened.
Sure.
So for those who maybe can't attend your workshop, I wanted to touch on what I know is one of the key parts of your outline, which is how there's really two parts of this role. There's the role that you play with your leader, the senior pastor or minister that you're working with, and then there's the role that you play with the rest of the staff and maybe the church at large. So can you speak to me a little bit? Let's start first with what it means to be an effective director of ministries or executive pastor with that senior leader. What does that relationship look like for each of you?
Well, staff health is actually one of the secret ingredients or the special sauce for church health and growth. And that really begins with the dynamic between the first and second chair leaders. And so for me, that looks like being a very loyal partner in ministry to my lead guy, understanding his vision for the church, coming alongside of him, taking things off of his plate so that he can do what God has called him to do and what he's wired to do best. But at the same time, taking his vision and his cultural values and drilling them down into our staff culture and making sure that we're setting up our staff to succeed, to hit the ball out of the park in their role. So on some days it's having crucial conversations, sometimes it's troubleshooting and putting out fires. Other days it's dreaming about the future and figuring out how to execute strategy so that we can reach more people, so that we can connect everyone to Jesus and his mission. So every day looks a little different, which makes it a lot of fun. Some days are more challenging than others, but more than anything, you're trying to establish a relationship of trust with your lead guy so that you are an active number two who is carrying out his vision and can be counted on in key circumstances.
And that loyalty probably is tested some days. It's probably difficult some days because you may or may not always agree with his decisions, but you still have to represent them as if you're a united front. I mean, I guess in some ways it's kind of like parenting, right? Don't go to the senior guy, we're going to say the same thing. Don't do an end run, right?
it's exactly right.
Yeah.
The trust is a huge thing both ways, so that you have a sense that they're going to have your back just like you've got their back. And we often talk about it, Ben and myself. I'm the one, I tell him all the time, I want to have his back when nobody else will. So I'm going to have his back with people in the church, with our staff, with elders, whatever that looks like. He can count on that and know that and have that level of trust. And then there's also, I'm also going to be the person that says truth to him that no one else will say. And because I have to play both of those roles, to be his biggest champion and defender. So there's a level of trust there, but also sometimes to say the things that maybe no one else would say to him that he needs to hear. And he can do the same for me. So I love it when our staff team will make little comments. They don't get how big it is when they say things like this, but they say things that like they hear us speaking with the same voice, or they know when Ben says something that Rob's gonna say the same thing, or they could hear Ben say something that Rob would have said. That we're that much in sync. But that took a lot of time and work. Ben and I were just getting to know each other when I joined the staff, and that took, lots of dialogue and conversations till we could get to that level of trust and to have confidence that we had each other's backs.
Well, that was actually going to be my next question, because you've been there 8 years, you've been there 14. Well, you've been there longer than 8, but in this position for 8 and for 14. So what would be some things you would say to someone, maybe this is their first or second year in this role, they respect and like and want to have the back of their senior leader, their heart's in the right place? What are some practical ways they can become more effective and they can start building that, both with their senior leader and with the staff? What are some?
In an effective first and second chair relationship, the second chair has a lot of authority and is given a lot of trust and is really the primary person that the staff looks to for guidance. And so you're allowed to gain a lot of influence with them quickly. And any second chair leader will tell you, on any given day, you have a number of opportunities to undermine the lead guy if you want to. And you have to consistently choose not to. When that 1-2 relationship is working well, you see each other in your most candid moments. And what works really well in my relationship with my lead guy, Eddie Lowen, is I know he always has my back. He's never looking to undermine me. He's always elevating my influence, and I'm doing the same for him. And that's very similar to what Rob was saying. When you're both looking out after each other and you have the freedom to disagree behind closed doors, but when you go out into your staff and into your church, you're a united front, that makes a world of difference. It allows you to take much more ground for the kingdom more quickly.
And I think one of the things you have to do if you're new in the role, a year or two in, is just take time to have the conversations. Especially if there's areas where there's maybe some rub and you're sensing there may be some rub or we're not on the same page here, then just pursue it in intentional conversation until you get there. Until you get to a place, at least you can agree, all right, here's where we are. We're not exactly on the same page, but this is the united front that we're going to present to the rest of the staff and to the church. And it is a bit like parenting. You want to get it to the place where you stop your kids from doing an end run and going to the other parent, and that takes some time for the two of you to get to that place with your team.
And there's a lot of weight placed on the shoulder of any leader, but there is a special kind of pressure that comes with the lead guy role. And when you're a second chair leader, you get a front row seat to the kind of hours that they work and the kind of demand that they have on their time and the pressure that they have to go to sleep with every night. And so respecting that and understanding that you don't know what that's like until you're there, and doing all you can to free them up, to take things off their plate, sometimes to have crucial conversations so that people can walk into church on Sunday morning and hear their preacher and their pastor and not hear the person who had that tough conversation with them. That is really important.
That's a really good insight.
Where we can step in and take a piece of that load off their plate, that's what our role is there to help do. But because sometimes it can't be us. It has to be the lead voice. And so there are times where it's only them, but where it can be us and we can take some of that load and share that mantle of leadership, then that's our role to do that.
Well, another thing that strikes me about the role is that because it can be so broadly defined, it can also require so many different skill sets. So depending on the church culture and the lead guy and his gifts, you may or may not be handling HR, for lack of a better term, culture creation, organizational leadership. You might be dealing with budgets and finance and balance sheets. You might be dealing with starting new campuses. You might be dealing with building projects. I mean, is it just kind of one of these things where you just kind of have to learn on the job because you don't know what's going to come? How could you prepare well if this is something that, because there are people who know their giftedness and they're like, this would be a great fit for me.
Right.
But how do you prepare for a job like that? Pray.
Any wisdom there?
Boy, I don't know that I've ever felt truly prepared for the job. It's because it's continued to evolve. There's nothing in my undergrad or graduate school, experience that have prepared me for it. I think just each day, each month, each year has grown me to the place where hopefully I can handle today. And as long as I'm open to keep learning and growing, then I can probably hang on and just, if you feel like this is just smooth sailing, and that's where you're going to get to that place to be content, then this probably isn't the role for you.
Or you're doing it wrong.
Or you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And so, we're trying to figure out septic right now. We're a church of 5,300 people with limited septic capacity. So I never thought I would need to know anything about septic systems.
It was in your dreams professionally,
yeah,
wasn't it?
but that's our reality, and adding new campuses. And I mean, part of that's what I love about it,
Yeah.
is that the job was different at 1700 than it is at 5300. And there's always something new and new challenges, and our leadership continues to expand and grow. So, I don't know. That's not a real clear preparation process, but
Rob, I don't know about you, but when I first started, I felt like I needed to be good at everything.
yeah,
And the truth is, an executive pastor is really only exceptionally good at 2 or 3 things. And then beyond that, there are things that your job requires of you
right.
that you can put people around you to
Exactly.
speak into. There are areas where God's going to challenge you to grow, or your church's stage of growth and church life requires you to grow. But I think one of the key factors in good executive pastoring is an insatiable hunger to grow.
Right.
You go out and get the skills you need, and you learn what you need to learn, and you know you're not going to be exceptional at them, and you specialize in what you're really good at. You make sure you put people around you, and you make sure you have some additional resources that help get you where you need to go as a church.
Probably all the people we lead are sharper in those areas than what we are.
As
I mean,
it
that's
should
why
be.
we hired them.
As it should be,
So,
because you can't be an
exactly.
expert in everything, but maybe you can be an expert in hiring good people and then building strong culture or working with people well to build those relationships. Yeah, that's great. We got to wrap up. Anything else that you'd want to share? Maybe what you would tell yourself if you could go back in time for when you started this a decade or more ago? Things you wish you had known when you started?
That's a great question. I would say everything looks better in the morning. When you have a tough day, sleeping it out, when you wake up in the next morning, oftentimes you have a lot more clarity. And I am not by nature a very patient person, but changing culture and getting through difficult times, it just takes patience. And changing a church and getting a church to new levels, all of that requires a lot of tenacity. And you just have to be patient and keep at it day after day. So if I were speaking to myself 8 years ago, I would say be patient. Know that there are resources out there that can guide you, people out there who've been where you want to go that you can learn from, but just be patient, keep at it, and
And get a good night's sleep.
get a good night's sleep.
Yeah, I think I would echo that. To me, looking back, if I could have taught myself anything back then, it would probably be that changing culture takes a long time and a lot of intensive people time, relationship time, and you'll get there. Ben was a lot more patient than I was. I was ready to make change happen quickly, but we would have done more damage in the process if we had moved faster. So I think to be more patient and go for the long haul.
Good. So hard, but so good.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys taking
You
time
bet.
for this. If you want to know more, their workshop is going to be recorded, so you can get that from, I think it's CA tapes, Christian audio tapes. If you're an executive pastor or an aspiring one and you want to learn more, or if you're here at the convention, you can check them out. Your workshop is what time? Tomorrow?
2:30 on Thursday.
Yes.
2:30 Thursday. Thanks you guys for
You
your
bet.
time.
Thanks.
Pleasure.